This is a video about the way. Matthew 7:13-14. Jesus said, "Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate, and easy the way that leads to destruction, and many are those who enter through it. How narrow is the gate, and difficult the way that leads to life, and few are those who find it." Genesis 18. Keep the way of Jehovah to do righteousness and justice. Keep the way of Jehovah to do righteousness and justice. Deuteronomy 8:1-2. You shall observe to do all the commandments which I command you today, that you may live and multiply and go in and possess the land which Jehovah swore to your fathers. You shall remember all the way which Jehovah your God has led you these 40 years in the wilderness, that he might humble you, to prove you, test you, to know what was in your heart, whether you would keep his commandments or not. Ezekiel 33. Yet the sons of your people say, the way of Jehovah is not right, when their way is not right. When the righteous turns from his righteousness and commits iniquity, lawlessness, he shall die by it. But if the wicked turns from his wickedness and does that which is lawful and right, he shall live by them. Yet you say, the way of Jehovah is not right. O house of Israel, I will judge you, every one according to his ways. Psalm 119:29-30 and 33. Keep me from the way of deceit. Grant me your law graciously. I have chosen the way of truth. I have set your ordinances before me. Teach me, Jehovah, the way of your statutes. I will keep them to the end. Proverbs 6:23. For the commandment is a lamp, and the law is light. Reproofs of instruction are the way of life. Proverbs 2:20. So you may walk in the way of good men, and keep the paths of the righteous. Proverbs 4:14. Don't enter into the path of the wicked. Don't walk in the way of evil men. Proverbs 8:20. I walk in the way of righteousness, in the middle of the paths of justice. Psalm 143:8. Cause me to hear your loving kindness in the morning, for I trust in you. Cause me to know the way in which I should walk, for I lift up my soul to you. Proverbs 10:17. He is in the way of life who heeds correction, but he who forsakes reproof leads others astray. Proverbs 10:29. The way of Jehovah is a stronghold to the upright, but it is a destruction to the workers of iniquity. Proverbs 12:28. In the way of righteousness is life, in its path there is no death. Isaiah 26:7. The way of the righteous is straight, upright one. You make smooth the path of the righteous. Isaiah 35:8. A highway will be there, a road, and it will be called the Holy Way. The unclean shall not pass over it, but it will be for those who walk in the way. Wicked fools shall not go there. Jeremiah 7:22-24. For I did not speak to your fathers or command them in the day that I brought them out of the land of Egypt concerning burnt offerings or sacrifices. But this thing I commanded them, saying, Listen to my voice, and I will be your God, and you shall be my people. Walk in all the way that I command you, that it may be well with you. But they didn't listen or turn their ear, but walked in their own counsels and in the stubbornness of their evil heart, and went backward and not forward. Jeremiah 10:2-4. Jehovah says, Don't learn the way of the nations, and don't be dismayed at the signs of the sky, for the nations are dismayed at them. For the customs of the people are vanity. For one cuts a tree out of the forest, the work of the hands of the workmen with the axe. They deck it with silver and with gold. They fasten it with nails and with hammers, so that it can't move. Matthew 21:32. For John came to show you the way of righteousness, and you did not believe him. But tax collectors and prostitutes did believe, and even when you saw it, you did not change your minds afterward and believe him. Matthew 22:16. And they sent their disciples to him along with the Herodians, saying, Teacher, we know that you are true and teach the way of God in truth, and show deference to no one, for you are not swayed by appearances. They knew that Jesus was true and taught the way of God. He taught the way. Job 23:10. But he knows the way I take. When he has tried me, I shall come forth as gold. Serve Jehovah with fear, and rejoice with trembling. Give sincere homage to the Son, lest he be angry and you perish on the way, for his wrath shall soon be kindled. Blessed are all those who take refuge in him. Psalm 2:11-12. Psalm 1:6. For the Lord knoweth the way of the righteous, but the way of the ungodly shall perish. I will not justify the ungodly. Exodus 23:7. He who justifies the ungodly, and he who condemns the righteous, both of them alike are an abomination to Jehovah. Proverbs 17:15. Proverbs 13:6. Righteousness keepeth him that is upright in the way, but wickedness overthroweth the sinner. Proverbs 15:9. The way of the ungodly is an abomination to Jehovah, but he loves him who follows after righteousness. 2 Chronicles 20:32. He walked in the way of Esau his father, and didn't turn away from it, doing that which was right in Jehovah's eyes. 2 Chronicles 21:6. He walked in the way of the kings of Israel. He did that which was evil in Jehovah's sight. Job 31:7. If my step is turned out of the way, if my heart walked after my eyes, if any defilement is stuck to my hands. Psalm 25:8. Good and upright is the Lord, therefore he shows sinners the way. Psalm 25:12. What man is he who fears Jehovah? He shall instruct him in the way that he shall choose. Exodus 32:8. They have quickly turned aside from the way which I commanded them. They have made for themselves a cast metal calf, and have worshipped it, and have sacrificed to it, and said, This is your God, Israel, who brought you up from the land of Egypt. Deuteronomy 5:33. You shall walk entirely in the way which the Lord your God has commanded you, so that you may walk, and that it may be well for you, and that you may prolong your days in the land which you will possess. Deuteronomy 9:12. Then the Lord said to me, Arise, go down from here quickly, because your people whom you brought out of Egypt have behaved corruptly. They have quickly turned aside from the way that I commanded them. They have made a cast metal image for themselves. Deuteronomy 9:16. And I saw that you had indeed sinned against the Lord your God. You had made for yourselves a cast metal image of a calf. You had quickly turned aside from the way that the Lord had commanded you. Deuteronomy 11:26-28. See, I am placing before you today a blessing and a curse. The blessing if you listen to the commandments of Jehovah your God, which I am commanding you today. And the curse if you do not listen to the commandments of Jehovah your God, but turn aside from the way which I am commanding you today, by following other gods which ye have not known. Deuteronomy 13:1-5. If a prophet or a dreamer of dreams arises among you and gives you a sign or a wonder, and the sign or the wonder comes true, of which he spoke to you, saying, Let's follow other gods whom you have not known, and let's serve them, you shall not listen to the words of that prophet or dreamer of dreams. For Jehovah your God is testing you, to find out whether you love Jehovah your God with all your heart and with all your soul. You shall follow Jehovah your God and fear him, and you shall keep his commandments. Listen to his voice, serve him, and cling to him. But that prophet or the dreamer of dreams shall be put to death, because he has spoken falsely against Jehovah your God, who brought you out of the land of Egypt, and redeemed you from the house of slavery, to drive you from the way in which Jehovah your God commanded you to walk. So you shall eliminate the evil from among you. Judges 2:17. They turned aside quickly from the way in which their fathers had walked, in obeying the commandments of the Lord. They did not do the same as their fathers. Mark 10:51-52. And answering him, Jesus said, What do you want me to do for you? And the blind man said to him, Rabbi, that I might see again. And Jesus said to him, Go, your faith has healed you. And immediately he regained his sight and began following him on the way. Luke 20:21. They asked him, Teacher, We know that you say and teach what is right, and aren't partial to anyone, but truly teach the way of God. Jesus taught the way of our Creator. Jesus spoke the words of our Creator. We are to follow what he said. Men were following traditions of men and commandments of men. And Jesus the prophet came to bring us back to the Creator, our Father. It's his words that are important, and our obedience that determines whether we are on the way that leads to life. Acts 9, 1-2. But Saul, still breathing threats and slaughter against the disciples of Jesus, went to the high priest and asked for letters from him to the synagogues of Damascus, that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. Paul defending himself after desecrating the temple. But this I confess to you, that according to the way, which they call a sect, thus I worship the God of our fathers, believing all things that are according to the law and written in the prophets. Jesus was put to death because he was attempting to stop the sacrifices. Mark 11. Then they came to Jerusalem, and he entered the temple area and began to drive out those who were selling and buying on the temple grounds. And he overturned the tables of the money changers and the seats of those who were selling doves. And he would not allow anyone to carry merchandise, animals doomed for slaughter, through the temple grounds. And he began to teach and say to them, Is it not written, My house will be called a house of prayer for all nations? But you have made it a den of robbers. And the chief priests and the scribes heard this, and they began seeking how to put him to death, for they were afraid of him, because all the crowd was astonished at his teaching. Mark 12. Then they sent some of the Pharisees and Herodians to him in order to trap him in a statement. They came and said to him, Teacher, we know that you are truthful, and you do not care what anyone thinks, for you are not partial to anyone, but you teach the way of God in truth.